Good afternoon, and thanks for the introduction. Appreciate that. Again, my name is Lynn Palensky. I'm the executive director of the North Pacific Research Board in Anchorage. I'm really happy to be here, and I really appreciate the invitation to come speak. I moved to Alaska just two years ago, I guess now, right in the heart of, or right in the beginning of COVID. So this is my probably second big opportunity to meet a lot of people that we work with in our research community. So it's fun to be out and about. So I'm still learning a lot about the state. So what I thought I'd do, since not everyone knows about the NPRB here, I'm guessing that not everybody does. I thought I'd start with just a quick overview of who we are and what we do, and then sort of move in and talk about some of the big projects or programs that we've worked on that might be relevant to this area. So before I move into that, though, I want to say happy anniversary to Gnarl. I did go on the tour, so I got the sort of the car tour. It was amazing. I missed the snowy owls, but hopefully I'll get up here to see those again. So anyway, appreciate all the work, and it was really fun listening to the history of Gnarl as well. So it was really a fun panel to listen to. So let's move into, okay, just quickly about the North Pacific Research Board, I'll call NPRB. We were created by Congress in 1997. We have a 20-member board, one of whom is in the room here today with me. Our funding is pretty stable, albeit pretty low right now, and I'll tell you why in a minute. The funds are derived from a settlement, the Dinkin Sand settlement. The federal government in that settlement created the Environmental Improvement Restoration Fund. So our funding comes from 20% of the interest earned on that EIRF fund. That the principal is an enormous amount in there, but our funding ranges from about 6.2 million to 10 million a year. So just interestingly enough, since our funding is tied to interest rates, T-bill, we are now in our lowest funding year ever. So part of my job is sort of managing that as well. Our funds are provided through NOAA in Juneau. We work with our Juneau grants team down there. And the funds are specifically related to or to be spent on fisheries and marine ecosystems in the North Pacific, Bering, and in the Arctic. We make funding recommendations with the help of our esteemed advisory panel and our science panel. It's back to our board, and those recommendations go back to the Department of Commerce for final approval. Our mission, again, what we do is we carry out our mission through planning and prioritization of pressing fishery management issues and ecosystem needs. We do it collaboratively. We encourage and we strongly encourage cooperative research, and we do this through competitive selection. And also the NPRB also provides for, as we have to, data and information to be made publicly available after our programs and projects are completed. Okay, board membership. I won't go into too much detail here, but we do have a 20-member board. We now have 19 seats filled, and just a shout out to Church Key, who just helped to fill our very last 19th seat with the Office of Naval Research representative. That seat hasn't been filled for quite a while, so he did that in about 3 minutes after asking him, by the way. That's just how much of a mover and a shaker he is. So our top 5 on the list here represent our executive committee. And just probably because you're interested, the Alaska representatives are not by the governor of Alaska and represent fishing interests, Alaska Native issues, environmental interests, academia, and oil and gas interests. And we have Rex Rock Jr. He's on our board right now, and he's from this area. As some of you may also know, Ragnar Ostrom, he's from Yukon Delta, a little further away, but he represents the environmental interests. So yeah, we have a very active board, and they make the funding decisions for our organization. Oops, let's see. Oh yeah, so the science panel, and this is a typo, it's not advisory board, it's advisory panel. But these two groups are very important to NPRB. They help us shape not only the science programs that we have and operate, but they also review all of our proposals that come in through RFPs and add the other lenses of importance, research priorities, meaningful stakeholder involvement, planning, oversight, and relevance, right? So I just want to mention that the science panel right now has four seats open right now. So for any of you scientists out there who are all interested in putting in your name, nominating yourself or nominating someone else for our science panel, you have until August 22nd to do that. So we just have a big turnover happen just with term limits. So that's why we have 4 seats open right now. On the advisory panel, we have, of interest to you, 3 Arctic seats. And a shout out to Nicole Conayuric, who's actually on our panel, and Vera Metcalf, both on our panel right now. So thanks for your work. I don't know if she's in here right now. And also Nick Ruck, who termed out recently, just right after I joined NPRB. And we've had Werner Wilson, who just termed out as well. So we will be looking for another Arctic advisory panel representative. That announcement will likely come out in fall. So always encourage folks to think about that, if you're at all inclined to do that. So let's see, moving on. We do a lot of things at the NPRB, but I just, sometimes I like to just take a step back and say, all right, what are the big things that we're really focusing on now? And they're not necessarily programs, they're sort of areas. And this sort of helps keep me focused. And also I think it helps provide a sort of a bigger picture look at what we're sort of after and what we do. So funding top research priorities is probably number one. That's one of the things that we always want to strive to do, top priorities, and communicate those results. We do that through a number of different mechanisms, and I'll talk about a couple of those. The Arctic and the Northern Bering Sea IERP, and that's the Integrated Ecosystem Research Programs. I'm going to talk a little bit about that and later on as well, but the Arctic IERP, we're wrapping up right now and moving into the very early stages of a Northern Bering Sea IERP. We are incorporating a co-production approach to all of our programs internally, how we think, how we operate in all of our programs. We are very focused on partnerships. Again, this panel sort of speaks to that. We have some industry partners that we work with right now who actually co-invest in some of the projects that are proposed. We have 3 organizations that I'm not gonna remember their names, but the Bering Sea Crab Association, and then the OSRI, which is the Oil Spill Research Institute, and Pollock. The Pollock PCCRC, for those of you who might know that. So those are all, those are actually, that's a new partner for us. We have many partners, including Northstroke Bureau, who's contributed a lot of funding to our IERP. And again, I'll talk about that in a minute. So we have a lot of partnerships that from organizations who co-invest with us in marine research. And then we also are the lead organization to put on the Alaska Marine Science Symposium. This happens once a year in January, and if you've never been to it, it's something to go to. We have about 700 participants. It happens in Anchorage in January again. And this upcoming January will be the 30th year. It's hard to believe it's been that long, but we're having it at the Denina Center this year. Is a little different location. So yeah, hope to see you all there. Okay, back to some other themes that we've heard even on the last panel about priorities. And I'm just, how does NPRB come up with its priorities that end up in an RFP on an annual basis? One of the things we do is solicit priorities from specific management agencies and also the research community, like a specific management agency would be like NOAA and others. research community and public. We also solicit from the research community and the public through online portal. That just closed. We have a sort of opening for anyone to submit research priorities on our website. We also have a lot of input from our board, science and advisory panel members. And then we also review the priorities of the North Pacific Fisheries Management Council, because we do have that element of our mission about pressing fishery management issues. So those priorities end up being integrated into our 4 big research programs. And that's our core program, which some of you might be familiar with. That's the annual RFP that comes out. Probably the most money goes into that program. Also the integrated ecosystem research programs and long-term monitoring program. I'll talk about that in a minute too. And then we have a graduate student research award program as well. Then those research priorities get further defined in categories within each of those programs. So we cover a lot of ground here, from oceanography to interdisciplinary studies, human dimensions, marine mammals, birds, invertebrates, so on. So, specific categories have specific research priorities further defined when those RFPs come out. This is just an overview of our research investments. So you can see I mentioned that our core research program has the bulk of all programs. It's been around the longest, and the board puts a certain amount of funding in every year for that program, whereas the other ones aren't necessarily every year. Cumulative funding since the NPRB started is roughly $150 million. So this is sort of, and you can see the Bering Sea, Gulf of Alaska, and Arctic IERP are up there as well. In our long-term monitoring program at 2%, it's been around for a long time. It's a smaller amount of money, but packs a punch as it collects data year round on a time series basis. So, oops, keep going. Okay, now I'm going to just transition to just talking a little bit more about programs that are, I think, relevant and of interest to folks here. The Arctic IERP, again, Integrated Ecosystem Research Program. So this is a timeline of what's happened since we started this in Arctic IERP. That began in 2016 with funding from NPRB and a lot of help from the North Slope Bureau and the Shell Baseline Studies Program, BOEM, ONR, Observational Research Marine Mammals, Biology Program, and then we have a lot of other support, in-kind support from NOAA, UAF, NSF, and Fish and Wildlife Service. So again, we were wrapping up on the Arctic IERP. And the last part of that has been a recent solicitation for the synthesis phase, which the board just made a funding decision on it at the spring meeting. At the same time, we're in the very, very early stages of thinking about the Northern Bering Sea IERP, and I also had a solicitation for an assessment for that phase moving forward. These big programs are interdisciplinary, they're very collaborative, they're multi-million-dollar programs, they're over a long time series. I know we talked about that. They're like 5 to 6 to 7 years in time. So it's a longer time frame than, say, the core projects that can be anywhere from a year to 4 years long in length. Again, I'm going to hold up, actually. I brought some props here. A lot of data and information was produced from the Arctic IERP, and I just wanted to hold this up. This is deep sea research part. I brought some of these with me. They're out on the table, along with some candy to help entice you to take some of the stuff that I brought, because I don't want to take it home. But there's also a brochure that really wraps up. This is a really, really thin brochure, but it talks about sort of the highlights and the key findings of the IERP, the Arctic IERP. So those are out there. You can find a lot more of the data and information and publications on our website. But this, resulted in a lot of publications. As you can see, there's over 50, and then there were presentations, a lot with the North Slope Borough Fish and the Wildlife Program, as well as the Whaling Commission meetings, BIA, a lot of other groups of people, IPCOM, and there were also some meetings. I'm just trying to think about the communication and the engagement. There were several meetings with the 8 communities up here, along with social scientists and the researchers, to talk about the changes and the shifts in the plant and mammal, or the phytoplankton, mammal, and fish communities that have moved around and caused a shifting, which results in changes in or reduced production and subsistence, and reduction in food security. So there's, I think, still a lot of synthesis to happen in this program, and yeah, we're just sort of shifting into the next IERP. So it's a big program, and it's important, and really what it's shown is, again, there's a lot of data information, but if you take all that up and distill it up to some bullet points: warmer waters, swifter northward currents change fish communities in the Chukchi Sea. Things are moving and shifting. Salmon, seabirds, plankton, zooplankton, some of the key prey base for some of the key subsistence species that are harvested around this area. So it's going to be important to continue to look at that and see how it will impact coastal communities. Moving into long-term monitoring program, I mentioned that earlier. This is a long-term time series research, and these are sort of there's a lot of funding partners with these two. Actually, we have 3, but I just pulled these 2 up here: the Chukchi Ecosystem Mooring Array and the CPR, like the CEM. Also, I think it's called the Chukchi Ecosystem Observation Program. So the CEO and the CPR, those are important in this area. I want to focus on the Chukchi Ecosystem Mooring because I think it'll be of importance to you. This is NPRB started this way back when. It's been a long time. It's a bit offshore. It's near Hannah Shoal, and I don't know exactly where that is, but I'm sure many folks here do. It monitors year-round below the ice and picks up data on temperature, currents, nutrients, and acoustics, both marine mammal and vessel acoustics. And if you look at the annual level, you can sort of start to predict the ice movements and the stability. This is also a really key, since it's an array, it's really key, and it picks up data year round. It picks up things that a couple passes of a vessel aren't going to pick up. So this is a really important project. The next thing is really just, I'm going to wrap it up and just talk about a couple of opportunities for continued partnership and research. One of the things that when I talked with my staff and told them I was coming up here, they said, it'd be really nice to just throw out the idea of exploring options for continued dialogue with the North Slope Borough and communities in this area, just to share ideas about research priorities and things that are important to the communities here. And then priority research, subsistence activities, and then also share results. So this is another good opportunity if we could think about ways to meet on a regular basis to talk about results from the IERP, and then moving into the next IERP. And what other important research priorities are there that folks think about, or what other concerns are there? So just exploring opportunities for continued, perhaps annual meetings, biannual meetings, meetings like this. I think this is really important. Also interest in partnership opportunities as we develop the Northern Bering Sea IERP, the framework for that. And then specifically, one of our staff was saying she thinks it's very important, she, and probably giving away who that is, observations of zooplankton, an important prey species, for changes in reproduction under a changing climate. So just really focusing on one particular aspect that we started with both the IERP and the CEO project. So that's really going to impact, in her mind, there's some question about whether those communities are going to be sinking or floating, whether they're going to be productive in the benthic arena or in the pelagic arena. So that'll change a lot of things. So if we can start looking at that pretty specifically, that would be great. I'm going to end it there, and I just really appreciate the invite again, and I think meetings like this are very important. And I also have our nice calendar that is developed through a photo contest through NPRB. Thank you. I know we're over halfway through the year, but again, the candy. And I think there's a couple other things out there as well. So thank you again. Appreciate it. All right.